Hello,
Good morning. I'm Jen,
I'm Kimberly, and this is
and
That
this is
Vegan
the
Morning
Vegan
Show.
Morning Show. How you doing, Kimberly?
I am doing well, Jen. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. How was your weekend?
My weekend was fantastic. And part of the reason for that is because I got to see you and your
Aw,
husband. Yeah.
aw. It was fantastic for the same reasons because we got to see you and your husband.
Yay. It was so fun. I led a meditation this weekend, and Jen and her husband were kind enough to come out and attend that. And then we got to hang out and do friend stuff afterwards. Um, but it was really exciting to do this meditation again back at the same farm at Ethos Farm in Long Valley that I had previously held a meditation in August. And the weather was perfect. The grass
Mhm.
was a little damp, and it was just like a gorgeous morning, and there was a good turnout. It was just really nice.
It was an amazing day. We actually have a slide,
We do.
pictures
Thank you
of
for
that.
putting that together.
Yeah, you're welcome. Are you going to put it up or do you want me to? Do you have it?
Yeah, I think I see it right. Oh,
It's
which one
labeled
is it?
weekend. It's the one
You
labeled
see
weekend.
Oh, weekend. Okay, thank you.
There we are.
Yay, there we are. Yeah, so here we are in the middle with the doctor's market behind us, and then we've got the meditation off to the right, some amazing veggies and stuff on the right as well at the farm. We later on went and walked through an arboretum, which is where those two photos on the left are from. And then the bottom one on the left, we stopped and we got some vegan ice cream and some coffee with oat milk from a farm that is in Newton, New Jersey, called Windy Brow Farms. They used to be a dairy farm like decades ago, and they transitioned to a fruit and vegetable farm. And they make their own ice cream in house, including all of their vegan ice cream. So that is really cool. And it's one of our favorite places to spend a few minutes. And we made a friend. So in that upper left photo, that's a butterfly. I actually put it into the Google search and then did some more research. And I thought it was a moth because it's brown. And isn't that mean? But it's actually a butterfly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is so yeah, I thought it was a moth also,
Yeah.
but it just goes to show and what differentiates a moth from a butterfly? That's my big
You know,
question.
I'm not sure. Wait, hold on. I'm trying to. Okay.
Well,
I
while
was
you
trying to
look
share.
that up, I just wanna say that Ethos Farms has the most beautiful produce I've ever seen.
Right.
Like, it's just so beautiful. I every time I come there, this is my second time there, it's like I'm, like, obsessed taking pictures of the vegetables because 'cause they're just so
Yes.
beautiful.
Agreed.
And yeah, the farm was absolutely beautiful. It was like the perfect pre-fall day. You know, we're technically not in fall, but once it hits September, it's like fall in my brain. Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
but it was like the perfect day. And yeah, just so much fun hanging out with you and JP. And that vegan ice cream was
Mhm.
amazing. I
Yeah.
I love it when there's more than like one or two flavors. They had like I think I took a picture of it. I should have put that in there. Um,
Oh, yeah.
I took a picture of their vegan ice cream menu. I think there was like 6 or 8 flavors, something like that.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I wanted to try them all, but
I know, right? And the cool thing is too that I'll take the picture down now so people can see us again.
yay.
They make whatever vegan ice cream they have, they put it into pints too. So you can buy
Mm,
your favorite flavor or try a new flavor in pint version too and take it home with you.
I need to bring a cooler.
Right. You really do. You haven't even had a chance to properly shop at Ethos Market,
I
yet,
haven't.
because it was a gazillion degrees the first time, and,
Oh my god. I
it's
melted the first time.
me too, and then some.
And then we were melting all over each other in your car after
Yeah.
that. It was so hot.
How so outside of our time together, how was the rest of your weekend?
My rest of the weekend was pretty good. I had a leisurely morning
Right.
and just, we both are so busy and there's always deadlines of things. And it was kind of nice to just be like, you know what? I'll get up when I feel like it.
That is nice.
And then I just kind of spent couch time for 2 hours and after getting up. So it was just a nice leisurely morning. And then did some reading, cleaning. My husband had football, go 49ers. It's a very serious time of the year right now.
Yeah.
And and then we just hung out after food shopping. And yeah, what about you?
So we there was also football on here as well because JP and a bunch of his family members are in a fantasy football league together, and so we have NFL Red Zone, and so it kind of bounces around a lot between all the different games that are on. So JP can keep track of who's doing what, and he can see some of the plays of his players and stuff. And he thought he was going to lose, but he has a chance to win. I think he's got one more person to go tonight, so we'll see.
Ooh.
Fingers crossed.
JP.
And then right, and the Eagles won yesterday, which if I have to choose a team, they're my team. So so that was exciting, and they beat the the Chiefs, which everybody loves, thanks to Taylor.
We don't love. I mean, I like Taylor Swift. I have nothing against her, but in terms of the team, I mean,
yeah, no, same here.
Beat everybody. It's not fun.
And JP's a Giants fan, so me being an Eagles fan, he's not a big fan of that. But we make it work. We share all of our other teams. We like the other 3 major US sports. We're in agreement, so we can handle having this one differentiator.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I think it makes it also look like fun competition too.
It does. Yeah. It gives us the opportunity to trash talk a little bit, which we don't have with the other sports because we're just in it together.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I just take on, I'm pretty much whatever team Ellie roots for. Although I do root for the Bills because growing up in Syracuse, there was there's more people into the Bills there than like in New York City because everything's Jets and Giants primarily.
Right.
So I remember back when they were playing the Super Bowl like 4 times in a row and they lost, and my mom was into the Bills. So not that I'm diehard with any games. I like to watch it when the games count for something, when it gets closer towards like the playoffs and then the Super Bowl, then it gets like more exciting. I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, it just looks like they're running and falling all the time.
I mean, you're not wrong.
That's what they're doing. They start to run and then they fall.
So Jen, we have an interesting topic today all about pets. And like, it's so funny as we put together our description for the show and like what we'll title it, there are times where like as we're working through stuff, we have to use words that I don't love. I don't love the word pet. And but it's the word that everyone knows so that they know what we're talking about. So it's we've got to make sure that we're clear so people know what to expect when they tune in. So I get it, but I love that we get to have this conversation because then we get to look at kind of all of the different angles of things. So what are your thoughts on this? Like we're touching on ethical breeding and if that phrase even means anything. The idea of having pets. What else do you want to talk about today?
Wow. So first of all, this topic was your idea when we were meeting last week. And I was like, wow, this is such a great topic. Because I never thought about it too in depth. Like the only thing I thought about is like pet food and things like that. Which that could be a whole other show another time. But but in terms of thinking about it, So I was doing research last night, just reading more on the different angles of ownership. And we were talking about ethical breeding because this was your idea based on someone you followed on social media talking about how they adopted or they purchased an animal, a pet.
Mhm.
It's like because again, it makes it sound like they're an object, right?
Right.
So,
Mhm.
a furry family member. There we go. We'll call them a furry family member. They got it from an ethical breeder, right? People were giving them a hard time because they could have adopted.
Mhm.
And so I was looking at various different articles on all of shelter animals. I have a link that I can read off some statistics in a little bit on what happens in the shelters. But so yeah, I was, when is it okay to breed animals? And I was on Reddit and I was on Google and reading all the different things. And service animals came up.
Mm.
And that yeah, those are animals that are bred specifically, certain breeds are bred specifically to be service animals. And I've always thought of that as something very noble. I mean, I think it's great that, people in need can have this relationship with an
Mhm.
animal and they can help each other. But it's something to be honest, I never really thought of so in depth until last night. And so then I was reading all the different debates on all of that. And so that's something I realized. And that's what I love about researching things. And we were talking about this before we went on air. We're always, as vegans, I feel like we're never done learning, we're never
Yeah.
done growing, right? There's so many
Mhm.
layers to being vegan, right? The initial one is just eliminating eating animal products and using them for clothing and cosmetics and etc. Right? That's usually the first place everyone starts, which is an important place to start. But then there's these other nuances in life that as the longer you're vegan, I find myself thinking more about. And so that's one thing that came up for me to think more about and look at because there's a mixed debate on all of that. But in terms of you know, when we when we I have a shelter pet, my cat Minora. I adopted
Mhm.
her as a Hanukkah gift for my son Joseph back in December of 2011. We walked in, he had the name picked out before the cat. He was going to name
Oh.
whatever cat we got Minora because she was going to be a Hanukkah gift. He or she, we didn't know what we were getting. We just
Mhm.
knew the name and he wanted a black and white cat. And we walked in the shelter and there's this kitten playing with a toy mouse, running, being very active in the cage. And he's just like, I want that one. And that's how we ended up with Minora. She's this little 7-month-old baby.
Oh.
But I remember being in the shelter, Kimberly, and it's like you see all these animals, and it's not just
Mhm.
cats and dogs too. Rabbits, gerbils,
Mhm.
like turtles, right?
Yeah.
People take on pets and then they discard them, or
Mhm.
because they didn't have their pet spayed or neutered, now you have a kitten situation. I seem to recall that's what I was told about Minora. Like someone's cat had kittens, they just dropped them off. And
Mm.
big shout out to Sean Casey Animal Rescue in Brooklyn because they are a no-kill shelter and they do a lot of education on. And there's some resources that we can read about later that have one of the links saved. But yeah, so those are some of the things that came up for me with this topic. And I'm sure I'll have more to talk about, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for reminding me that this was my idea. Totally forgot that I had. So I mean, I have thoughts on it, and I did research too, but I totally forgotten that that's where that came from. So yeah, I had started following a couple on Facebook. They came up, and like the first couple of reels that I saw of theirs were like really funny, and I was just kind of enjoying their banter, and then they I saw a post where they were like, we understand, but this is the choice we've made. And I was like, what is this? So of course, like kind of clickbaity, right? And I click on it and it's like, we know that you're upset that we didn't adopt, but we made the choice to go with an ethical breeder. So I went back to the post before that talking about, hey guys, we just want to let you know we've got a new addition coming to the family and we can't wait for you to meet them. And so their followers just assumed that they were adopting because I'm reading the comments and they're like, oh, where are you adopting from? Oh, it's so great to get a shelter puppy or a shelter dog. And like everybody just talking about how meaningful it is to adopt an animal who needs a home. And like really like no one was saying like, who are you buying from? I didn't find a single comment where people were like, get it from a breeder, and everybody was so much like, yeah, what shelter? Let's shout out the shelter you're going to adopt from. And so I unfollowed them after their post about, look, we're doing this anyway, because they were like, we want a very specific dog and you can't just find a dog like that in a shelter. And I know from personal experience that you can find any specific type of dog. There's a rescue out there for all of them. My parents recently had a foster fail last year. They were fostering a Shiba Inu through a Shiba Inu rescue.
Oh, wow.
And now he is their dog, living with them, keeping them company, being their buddy. Because yeah, like my dad loves Shiba Inus, but my dad wasn't going to go to a breeder and buy a Shiba Inu. He worked with a shelter and at first was just fostering and had no intention. He wanted to help, many dogs. And but this dog just was the dog to spend the rest of his life with them. So that's how it worked out. But even these kind of all these very specific breeds, you can find a rescue. And even if they're not local to you, very often rescues kind of have they have people kind of in a like
a network.
Network. That was the word that was not coming to me. So if they're out in Illinois and you're in New Jersey, like there's somebody in Illinois who can drive them to Ohio, and then someone in Ohio who can pick them up and drive them to Pennsylvania. And then you don't have to fly, the dogs around or anything. And then they can make it to a home who is ready and able to care for them. And so it was really disappointing. And so I unfollowed them. That's all it takes for me. But I live with 3 cats. And in my life, I have lived with a total of 5 cats. The very first cat I lived with, Cookie, was adopted from a shelter. Met her at a PetSmart in Linden, New Jersey. And she just was immediately, I knew she was the one for me. We just had a connection. She was a little clumsy and kind of goofy and I just knew it. And so I adopted her from the shelter, who was, having their cats on display essentially at the PetSmart. And she had been a victim of hoarding. Cookie was living in a house with 43 other cats, and they went in and they got the cats out, and the cats who survived, stayed at the shelter and then were hopefully all adopted out. But Cookie was one of them. The other cats I live with showed up in our backyard. So we haven't adopted a cat. I haven't adopted a cat since Cookie. And the reason why there are cats showing up is because where I live in New Jersey is kind of rural and stuff. And people have either outdoor cats or barn cats. And, sometimes they're not always responsible and they're not getting their cats spayed or neutered. And so they're having kittens who are then just left to fend for themselves. And, they showed up and we took them in. And there were a few where we weren't able to take them in. They either kept showing up and then one day just didn't come back, or one cat who came back regularly but was like spraying everywhere. We worked with a woman who was connected with some local shelters and fosters, and we were able to trap him and get him to her. And she found him a perfect home where
Aw.
with a guy who loves gray cats. He was this big fluffy gray cat, and he has a well-built catio. And like this cat, there
Aw.
was no, because some cats, they've lived outside their whole lives and they're not going to stay inside. But this
Yeah.
cat was able to have the best of both worlds. And they sent me photos for, a couple months after, living his
Oh,
best life inside and, outside in this protected catio. And yeah, so like we haven't adopted any cats, JP and I, since we've been together, because I had adopted Cookie before JP and I even met. But we're taking in these cats who don't have a home otherwise. So part of me feels like, obviously I'm glad we took them and I love them so much and I think they have a better life than they would have outside on their own, but I'm not helping make space in shelters for people who buy a dog or cat who's been bred, and then they go, oh, I don't actually have time for this, or I thought my kids would be more responsible and take care of the dog or cat, and now it's my responsibility and I don't want it. And so they
yeah.
just dump them off at a shelter. Yeah, I
Well,
don't know.
first of all, it sounds like they adopted you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, cat distribution system was really at work.
They're like, you seem cool.
Right. You're not gonna say no to us. We're coming in.
Look at our cute little faces. I say that to
Yeah.
Ellie all the time when Menorah does something, bad or, acts out. I'm like, but look at her face.
Yeah.
We can't be upset at that.
No.
Um, yeah, first of all, well, yeah, but you know what? You're still helping the situation because these are animals that you're giving, and I hate differentiating animal beings. There you go.
Mhm.
These are beings, living beings that you and JP have provided a much better life for. So even though you didn't adopt them from a shelter, you still adopted them from a situation that saved their lives because it's
Yeah.
not safe being out there between animals and cars and other
Mhm.
people. Because
Yeah.
people sometimes will just see a cat outside and do mean things to it. You hear about it in the news all the time.
Mhm.
So so you're still helping the situation.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're coming up to, and you're right, there are breeds for everything. And I remember following Sean Casey Animal Rescue more back after when I adopted Menorah. They would sometimes receive purebred dogs,
Mhm.
for various situations.
Yeah.
And in my research, and I've heard about this before, but one of the other issues with breeding is a lot of these animals have health issues, right?
Right.
Because of the breed. Or,
Mhm.
certain things are done to them that fit the breed, like the show dogs, right? Things with their
Mhm.
tails or their ears, right? They're kind of just treated as these like show objects. Um, so I kind of like I don't like I've never had a dog. My sisters have had dogs, but they've always had dogs that they've adopted or someone couldn't take care of it anymore and so then they acquired that dog. But still like a form of adoption. But like why would you be like I need to have this specific breed? Like I mean,
Yeah.
in the case of your dad, I love what he did. I think that's great. Like he found a shelter for that specific breed. And like you just said, right, you can honor that. If there's a certain breed that you like, I love corgis. They have the cutest they look like little teddy bears, right? Like I get very excited whenever I see a corgi walk by. I'm just
They
like,
are very
oh,
cute.
they are very adorable. Right. But again, there's breeders that handle all these different things. I was wondering if I could read some statistics
Yeah.
about animal shelters, if that would be okay.
Sure. I think so.
So, from the aspca.org, they share on their website 2024 animal shelter statistics. So, 5.8 million dogs and cats entered shelters and rescues in 2024,
Wow.
down only slightly from the year before. So the number of dogs and cats entering shelters and rescues last year is evenly split, with both populations contributing to the overall slight decline in shelter intake. But that's 5.8 million, right? Think about that.
Yeah.
All right. And then the length of time dogs, especially large dogs, are staying in shelters before being adopted has increased. So in the last 5 years, adding strain to an already overburdened shelter system, this extended length of time animals are staying in shelters contributes to the ongoing capacity crisis, limiting space for new animals. And, there's a lot of other facts down here, but I'm going to skip down to, what they were just saying about space, right?
Mhm.
Approximately 607,000 animals were euthanized in shelters in 2024, decreasing by approximately 2% compared to 2023. In the past 5 years, euthanasia rates have dropped from 13% in 2019 to 8% in 2024. So that's great that it's been dropping, but it's sad that it happens at all.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I wanted to share that to emphasize why it's so much more important to adopt. And you never
Mhm.
know who you're going to find, and there's
Yeah.
multiple shelters. I mean, if you don't live in a big city, I mean, but there's usually, I would say, places within a reasonable driving distance for
Yeah.
shelters. But in bigger cities, there's obviously more shelters to go look around. But again, we live in the age of the internet where you can look these things up
Yeah.
and see what kind of pets. Again, we're using the word pet, but that just fits the topic here. So those are some things I wanted to share on it. What are your thoughts,
Yeah.
Kimberly?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It is horrifying the amount of animals who have nothing wrong with them that are euthanized simply because shelters are out of space and the influx of animals just keeps coming. Uh, Around this topic, I was doing a little bit of digging into breeders themselves and why they like how they justify being a breeder. And
Mm-hmm.
overall, some do breed for specific reasons. Their intention is a show dog or something like that. But then there are others that breed just because they believe that families should have the dog that they want. And for what I found among a lot of those types of breeders is that their thing is, well, you want to know what you're getting. So not even who, you want to know what you're getting. And we can guarantee that you know what you're getting. And we're better than a puppy mill. And so it's kind of like your other option is to go to a pet store and buy a dog or a cat that's been bred in a puppy or kitten mill. And I don't know if people like we've heard a lot about puppy mills, but I don't know, do a lot of people know that there are kitten mills too? And that it's the same process that the female dog or cat is kept in a cage and bred as often as possible until she can't be
Mm-hmm.
bred anymore, and then you know euthanized. um it's a horrific way to live, and it is very much kind of like a factory farm in that way, in that the animals are not cared for. They're living in terrible situations because you just when you commodify someone, it's all about how making the most money, spending the least amount so that your profit margin is bigger, and doing it as quickly as possible. So that means that there will never be truly clean, sanitized areas. There will never be dogs that are not constantly, and dogs and cats who are not constantly pregnant, and having their babies taken away, and just the whole system is just built on how can we make the most money
Mm-hmm.
with the least by spending the least. And when an ethical breeder, if that's their argument, we're better than a puppy mill, like I don't really think that's true. Like I don't think it's meaningful enough to be an argument. And there are cat breeders, by the way, too, because there are show cats. There are people who
Mm-hmm.
are like, I want to have this specific cat, and and so we hear it so much more about dogs, but cats, in the US anyway, cats too very much are just kind of like somebody can just let them out, and they just go about and live a life outside and maybe never come home. Maybe
Yeah.
because they get lost, maybe because they get hurt or they're killed by a car or a predator of some sort. And so, we don't have dogs typically. We don't typically have stray dogs like walking around in the US. I know that that happens in other areas of the world where there are very commonly stray dog populations. We have more of that issue with cats here. And so we're fighting like the millions of cats coming into shelters, trying to find them homes while also trying to figure out how to stop the constant, just like cats doing what they do outside, not being spayed and neutered. Like in our last house where the cats we live with now showed up, I can't tell you how many times I saw cats having sex like on our front lawn, and had to like go out there and like, stop it. And like I'm posting on like the local groups, like, please stop it. Your cats are like coming to our house and like having sex on our front lawn. Like, you have to get your cat spayed and neutered. Keep them in the freaking house. And of course, there are cat people who don't believe that cats should be stuck in the house, but that's a whole other conversation too. But I feel like I've just kind of gone off on a tangent. But yeah, what really got me was this whole idea that the breeders are kind of like, well, we're better than a puppy mill, so, and you'll get what you want for $1,000.
Yeah. Well, it stood out to me as you were sharing all of that, because everything you just said was all important points. At the end of the day, it's about objectifying animals. And you're right, you don't think about kitten mills. You never hear that term, but I am sure that you have a version of that out there. But yeah, it's all about objectifying animals, right? The way people talk about it, the way the show dogs are, any type of animal show, right? Type of a thing where, they have it with farm animals, right? They have it with cats and dogs. And I'm sure rabbits probably have it too, because I know there's rabbit breeds. And, and one of the reasons we were talking about doing this topic is, and I see we're already past time, so I'll wrap up in a minute, but I just wanted to, I feel like this ties everything together with the holidays, right? Because during the holidays, people will buy pets, and, and it's great, if you want to adopt a pet as a gift, but the thing is, sometimes a lot of the times you hear about people doing it and then, the novelty wears off. Now, I did some research on this, and I've seen that there's some back and forth how that's a myth. Like some shelters were saying that it's a myth that people return animals for the holidays. I think it depends. So I was seeing a lot of mixed information on that during my research. But I do know what happens, especially like for Easter time, right? With when we had Woodstock Farm Sanctuary on, and I've had Anne on before on the Confident Vegan. She told me about the bunny barn, right? They have a bunny barn. Why do they have a bunny barn? Because there's a lot involved in taking care of rabbits. I had a rabbit. Back, when I was like the summer before I started 8th grade, I got a rabbit from the state fair, and I had him for, he died in like 98. So I had him for like, I think like 6 years, probably 6-7 years, something like that. But there's a lot more to rabbit care, and so getting back to it, it's, I'm just going to quickly pull up, and we can put these links in our notes later. But just the place where I adopted Menorah, they list, ask yourself the following questions before you adopt. So what kind of pet do I want? Am I prepared financially for a pet? Now, side note, it goes beyond the food and the litter, right? And toys, because there's the vet. and your
Right.
pet can be healthy, right? But as they get older,
Mhm.
um, their bodies change, just like our bodies change as we get older.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared for those moments where things may not go as planned, or maybe they eat something and they get sick, or all the different things that can happen. So, side note, and on the, am I prepared financially for a pet? You have to ask yourself, am I prepared to handle a vet emergency?
Mhm.
Um, because you don't; those are things you don't plan for,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
um, Other questions include, does my landlord allow pets? Do I have enough space for a pet? And again, I'm just using the word pet because that's what they have here. And again,
Mhm.
we would just want it identifiable,
Yeah.
so people understand what we're talking about. How much time do I have to dedicate to a pet? That's another important thing, right?
Mhm.
If you're working and you're busy, or you're someone who travels a lot, are you going to be able to dedicate enough time for that? Are
Right.
all of the people slash pets in my household ready for a new pet? So if you already have other pets, how's that pet going to react? Right.
Right.
And
Mhm.
then the last question they have is, does anyone in my household have allergies? So
Mm.
these are really important things to ponder.
Yeah.
Because again, yes, they're adorable. They have cute faces. It's wonderful to want to provide a great life for a pet, and when you adopt an animal from the shelter, you now free up space for someone else in need, and you
Right.
help bring down those numbers where, unfortunately, yeah, there are no kill shelters, but unfortunately there are shelters that do euthanize because of just their system is overrun, and
Right.
so it gets really sad and frustrating when all of this could be prevented, or the numbers reduced, if we don't, do breeding. And again, yeah, better than a puppy mill, but it's still not really necessary, right? Again,
Right.
people are objectifying animals for their own, you know, financial gain.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's what I have to say on that. Any
Thank
final
you.
thoughts,
Thank
Kimberly?
you. Yeah. Thank you for all the stats and everything. I think it really helps drive home kind of the point that we are making. Um, for the people watching, whether you're watching with us not live now or on the replay, like please share your thoughts with us. We keep forgetting to mention that at the beginning, but it's always welcome. The conversation with you is always welcome. So never feel shy about putting in the chat whether you just want to say hello or you have a question or some thoughts about what we're saying. Like be part of the conversation. Who knows where we can take this when we have another person's ideas coming through. So please feel free, leave your comments. If when you're doing it live, we'll talk about it here with you. Hey, Dominic, welcome. Thanks
Hey,
for being
Dominic. Thanks
here.
for saying hello.
Yeah. And if you're commenting on the replay, Jen or I will get back to you when we see your comment.
Yeah,
With that,
absolutely. Thanks for
yeah,
mentioning all that, Kimberly. And we've mentioned this before, but not recently. Again, there's some topic you would like me and Kimberly to do a deep dive on, let us know. And you can let us know
yeah,
in the comments of this video. Ooh, excuse me. Yeah, just let us know. And we try our best to check the comments daily. So um yeah, we'll get
yeah.
back to you.
Awesome.
All right. Great show.
Yeah, always.
Good idea, Kimberly. Yes, always.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that we did this. I feel like we probably can take some of these topics and turn them into episodes of their own, based
Mhm.
on just kind of digging deeper into some of these different ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah, and maybe
Yeah,
we could even have someone on from a pet shelter in the future, or
yeah,
animal
that could be
shelter in the
interesting.
future,
Yeah,
um, because that could be helpful in just sharing more information on all
right.
of it.
Understanding what's really happening from the
Yeah,
ground. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
All right. Well,
All
everyone,
right.
thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thank
Bye for
you.
now.
Bye.